Number 1 on the DJ Tanner Dream Board, front row seats to New Kids on the Block.
Well, of course. I mean, I'm their biggest blockhead.
What are these? 3 front row seats for tonight?
A triple Mylanta? I haven't heard one of those since your wedding night.
I just wanted to let you know about my study group.
Oh, don't be a fuddy-duddy. I'll be your study buddy.
I'm about to embark on one of the great challenges of my scientific career.
This work right here is going to change history. I think this is going to be our greatest mission.
I don't have time to study. I'll never get into Stanford.
I got big plans for you tonight. I got maps, I got charts. I'm going to see you through this because my credibility is on the line.
It's at this point that you'll want to start taking notes.
Welcome to the Sitcom Study, the podcast where we contemplate the TV shows we grew up with and search for the truth and wisdom within the tropes and cliches. And Amy, what's the trope we're talking about today?
We're hanging tough, Jay.
Explain.
We're hanging tough because I want it that way, and I don't know any other 98 Degrees songs to add into our mix here, but we are checking out some boy band guest spots.
We're hanging with the boy bands. Yeah, this is kind of a follow-up to the last time we did this. We were talking about early 90s hip-hop guest stars.
Yes, and those were really good.
Yeah.
This was like a lackluster follow-up.
Yeah, I remember you, we talked at that time, of course, about what our relationship was to that music. If you remember, in that episode, we were talking about Bobby Brown showing up on 227, Belle Biv DeVoe showing up on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Digital Underground on Drexel's Class, and Criss Cross on A Different World.
And they were all worked into the plot in various ways. It was really fun.
Yeah, and I went into that with a lot of knowledge and appreciation of those musicians, for better or worse. And with some of them, like Criss Cross, that term might be a little
but they did a good job acting in that.
Yeah. When we're talking about boy bands, I don't necessarily have that same appreciation. So let's start there.
I do.
Okay. What is your relationship with boy bands? What does that phrase even mean to you exactly? What's your story?
Well, the phrase boy bands means to me that a bunch of dudes got pissed off and jealous that the women in their lives like different music, so they relegated a group of pop musicians to boy bands. Also can be considered boy bands, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, and everyone else can suck it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the question. Obviously, it's totally debatable. I was thinking the same thing. Are the Beatles a boy band? I didn't hear this term until the Backstreet Boys era, until the late 90s.
Okay, so I had definitely heard the term in my New Kids era when I was in elementary school. DJ Tanner and I are the same age, basically. And so that was New Kids was huge when we were in like 3rd and 4th grade. I had a sleeping bag, I had a beach towel. It was like all my friends went to the concerts. It was a big deal then. And all of the guys, like all of the boys we went to school with, would roll their eyes at the Backstreet Boys, just like the kids. Oh, sorry, yeah, but the same with the Backstreet Boys later on.
Let's stay on the new kids.
But then it's the same as the kids do now with One Direction and the K-pop music, BTS, and all that. The little boys at my school are like, ugh, at any music that the girls like. It is like the distaste of young boys for this type of music is evidence of baked-in misogyny. I've said it, and I stand by it.
Look, there's absolutely a case to be made there, but it's hard to track because the truth is, there's the music.
We don't like what the girls like. It's dumb.
The music that is made for this preteen girl audience often is very bad. And so
is it made for a preteen girl audience? Or is it just made, right? Like, I definitely see there's a career trajectory and a path where they're like that guy who did Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, and they eventually sued him. And the guy,
Maurice Starr,
that was the guy who did New Kids on the Block. What was the other one? The one that Bobby Brown was in, New Edition. So Maurice Starr started this whole kind of thing of like, oh, he's the manager of the boy bands. And you notice, though, that New Edition doesn't get this kind of hate. New Edition was a boy band, but people are not hating on it the way they hate on New Kids on the Block. And it has made me mad since I was 9. And you are going to hear that from me throughout.
All right, so I guess I'm gonna tread lightly. We will get specifically, I guess, to the New Kids when we do the Fuller House episodes. But I guess what I'll say is this is definitely a kind of music that really missed me. I think when I was first becoming aware of music, the New Kids were a big thing. I wasn't into the New Kids.
What were you into in 1988?
What I was into was Paula Abdul and Billy Joel. Those were the first 2 cassettes that I got. And what I'll say...
I was so into Billy Joel.
What's interesting about that time is that the New Kids were obviously a force, and I hated them. Me and my friend Dennis would famously go around New Kids busting, where we would take their magazines in the bookstores and hide them behind other magazines.
This is also the thing about like you burning something in your closet and like you realize you could never get away with lying for your whole life.
But here's the thing,
Webster.
Like, the next most popular boy band at that time was what? The Guys Next Door? Like, the New Kids were kind of a one of a kind thing at that time. Of course, they were imitators, but because they were sort of the only major thing like that, we didn't really need a term like boy band the way we did in the late 90s, where all of a sudden there were like 5 of these things, and it was really like a fad.
Well, and that's the thing. You had this factory in Orlando. You had another guy like Maurice Starr, and I can't remember his name right now. He's the one he was the Backstreet Boys manager and the NSYNC manager, and eventually NSYNC end up suing him because he stole so much money from them. And then I guess the Backstreet Boys did too, or they didn't have as tenuous a relationship with the guy. But anyway, so all sorts of legal shenanigans going on there. Yeah, the factory in Orlando that just started cranking out boy bands. They also created like Backstreet, NSYNC. I don't think 98 Degrees came from there. They were like their own thing, but O-Town was from there, and Mandy Moore as well. So you always have, like, when you had New Kids, you had Tiffany and Debbie Gibson, who were like the female bubblegum
and again,
pop.
Paula Abdul, I was into her. Like, you could even lump that in.
But she wasn't that young girl. Like, that's the thing. They have these, like,
that's true.
You know, they have the sort of like bubblegum pop thing going on.
But what you're getting at with this factory thing is the reason why I would argue there could be a reason beyond just misogyny that we didn't like them. That the thesis...
Yes, because at 8 years old, you totally understood how the music industry worked and didn't like it.
I'm going to make the argument, and you could say this about some of the quote-unquote, artists that I was into. The thing about these boy bands is they're not musicians. They're performers. They're a bunch of pretty boys that sing and dance. But, again, comparing them to, say, Billy Joel and Paula Abdul, Billy Joel is an actual songwriter, and he sits down and, plays his songs on the piano and hires his session musicians to come in. Paula Abdul, maybe a little bit more of like a, probably a product of some producers and stuff, maybe helps write her songs or whatever. So it's not like they're these bastions of, musicianship, but the idea that what you just said, that, this factory in Orlando cranks out a handful of these things, they hold auditions, they find these cute guys, and they put together this lineup, is part of the reason why I don't think that this music is necessarily to be taken super seriously. You could still have a good pop song.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of like musicianship and like going down the pathway of someone like Billy Joel or John Mayer or like John Legend for that matter, right? Like all of these, absolutely not. But it's not that kind of music. It's pop music.
Yeah.
It's different. And the Spice Girls, they put themselves together. Destiny's Child.
And they're good. The Spice Girls are so much better. Both, I mean, to me, that's like...
But when you say that, right, like those are the girl groups that are the answer to the boy bands. Yeah. And both of those weren't really writing their own songs. They were adding things here, in here and there. But it was the same deal, right? Like they have auditions. They want to, put a group together, whether it's a producer or a manager or whoever, it doesn't, or a record label, it doesn't matter. The like Pussycat Dolls, Nicole Scherzinger, Just Want a Damn Tony.
That's the thing. That's
you know what I mean? Like you
say.
Look at this, and there is like, is it a machine? Yes, but is it still a valid art form? 100%. It's just a different art form than the singer-songwriter thing that you're saying is the only value. But then you like people like Paula Abdul, and you like people like so many of the other girls that you're super into because you like that female sound more than you like that male sound in terms of your own musician.
Yeah.
Like what you like as music. And so it's the same.
Yeah. And I also just really like their songs better, but you could argue that's a bias. We can continue the New Kids on the Block argument. Let's
it's not just New Kids. It's all of them. And I can completely understand like older people not being
when I was in college,
music.
Of course,
exactly. Like when the Backstreet Boys were out, I liked them ironically at first, and then after a while in college as a 20-something got into them and went to one of their concerts and had a good time screaming with the little 9-year-old girls.
That was me with Spice Girls. Yeah. I went to the movie and that kind of turned me around.
And, and look, I totally get it as an older person who is, discerning about music and has listened to multiple genres, but I get real put out by just this idea that the 8, 9, 10-year-old boys who I watch, 11, 12-year-old boys who I watch at school right now, putting down the girls and being like, why don't you even like real music? Name 3 bands you really like. And it crawls up under my skin because it is such an influence of our society and this sort of gender war thing.
Yeah. There's a lot going on there, but it's also the we hate you Conrad thing from Bye Bye Birdie. It's just like, you guys like this guy too much.
Exactly.
So
which is also why many, many people who were young, like our parents were, in the early 60s, many men hated the Beatles.
Okay, what are our shows? What did we watch? 17 minutes into the podcast.
I'm already stressing Jay out. He keeps wiping the sweat off his brow. All right, we watched Fuller House, Season 2, Episode 10, New Kids in the House. Sabrina the Teenage Witch, Season 2, Episode 18, the band episode. That one has the Backstreet Boys. Just Shoot Me, Season 5, Episode 2, A Night at the Plaza with 98 Degrees. And iCarly, Season 5, Episode 2, I Go One Direction.
Yeah, so normally we talk about our shows in chronological order. We thought it would be fun this time to do them in the order of when the guest stars,
fame of the bands,
when
happened.
They were in their heyday. And I think that was a good decision because what we've got now is a sort of in or outer thing where our first and our last shows really kind of do something with the guest stars.
Yes.
And then the middle two are the ones that are, another sitcom trope for sure, another way of dealing with this, where the guest star is a little tag basically that shows up or a punchline or something.
Super lame. I was really annoyed, particularly at Sabrina the Teenage Witch for this, because they had a band competition.
Yeah.
And there was like it was just so dumb.
And that was frankly
to force it at the end when, I mean, it probably had to do with conflicts, but still.
Yeah, they only had them for a few minutes, but that was why I was so confident in saying I think this will be a good episode to do, knowing it was about a battle of the bands, thinking I'm sure there must be some big presence of the band. But we'll get to all that. But yeah, I just wanted to call that out. So we're actually starting, for the first time ever in sitcom study history, we are starting with the most recent show.
That's right.
Which is Fuller House. Our second time covering it. Of course, we've covered Full House OG many times. So I don't know. I like Fuller House. I like the kids. I'll say that.
Yeah,
like this is one.
Yeah, Kimmy Gibbler's kid, Ramona, I think is one
like
of the
her.
most fun.
I really like the youngest kid. I forget which one is Jackson. And which one
right. Yeah, no, he's not because there's the baby, right?
Yeah, not the baby, but he didn't have a ton to do in this episode. But as we were watching this, I was kind of getting deja vu. Like I did watch like the first season or so of this back when, just like for no reason.
For kicks. Yeah, like 2014, 2015.
It's interesting to see a multi-camera sitcom in, 2019 or whatever this is.
This is 2016.
Yeah, like how it's gotten to the point where now it almost feels like a single camera. Like they're able to do so much and get close to the actors and everything, but it is still the old-fashioned setup with the audience and everything.
Can I ask you, when would you say about-ish that this like nostalgia trend for our era kind of started? Because I kind of in my head feel like Fuller House was on the leading edge of that trend in 2014, 2015.
I'd say it was definitely one of the like sort of sub-pioneers in terms of doing the TV show thing.
Yeah.
Let's have a streaming series and bring everyone back. And then they did that for all kinds of other shows.
A bunch of other ones,
yeah,
right?
And then the ones where they couldn't figure out how to do it within the fictional world were like, all right, at least have a reunion special.
Yeah.
And so, I mean...
Or like reboot it all drama-y.
Yeah. No, definitely. I feel like... You said this was 2016?
This season was, and this is the second season. So first season was like 2014, 2015.
Yeah, so I think you're right, because to me, the big one that really comes to mind in terms of doing something like this is Star Wars The Force Awakens, where you have the characters from the old movies and these new characters, and so you're sort of doing the same thing but a different, they're sort of closing the book on the reboots and saying, no, now we're opening this up to the legacy sequels, the legacy continuations. And that was around the same time. That was like 2015.
Yeah. Okay. And the reason I asked that is just because I find the way that they sort of wink at so many things to the camera, to the audience, really fun. Like in this episode, Lori Loughlin gets called out at least 3 times as having starred in that Hallmark movie where with Dean Cain, don't you remember? And they like tell the whole entire plot of this Hallmark movie starring Lori Loughlin, who Lori Loughlin she's Aunt Becky, but like they never say that. They call her Lori Loughlin and they talk about it like that. And I just thought it was really funny that they had that moment, and it's the kids talking about it.
Yes, but this is pre-scandal, right? So they're just making the joke that she's in all these Hallmark movies. They're teasing her for that, right? This is before Lori Loughlin had the thing with her daughter, right? Because she's still on the show at this point. She's not in this one. The adults drop by.
Right, but they do come in every now and then.
Yeah, she's in the pilot, and then, she and Jesse are still on the show. And I feel like it wasn't until like almost COVID times that there was the thing with her daughter and the college and all that.
They got charged in 2019.
There you go. So a few years on the horizon. But to your point about the nostalgia, this is not just a random, let's call the new kids, because that would be fun. The new kids on the block at this time are doing their own nostalgia tour, right?
Yes,
this is around the time of those music videos that I like. And here's what I will say to redeem myself. I despise the new kids in their original incarnation. be it misogyny or just my own musical tastes, I did not like those songs or their dances. But these new songs that they have bring back the time, and a handful of these other ones. Look up New Kids on the Block on YouTube, and they have like
NKOTB.
Yeah, they have 3 or 4 music videos that they made that are all these nostalgia things where they also get together with Salt and Peppa and Vogue and Rick Astley, and I think those songs are good. I don't know if they have different songwriters or whatever, but so consider me
enjoying the new stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And I bet they prefer that I like that than the old songs. So consider me reconciled.
Maybe they don't get as many royalties because of bad contracts.
Well, all artists just like their new stuff.
Well, and so New Kids, to your point about the nostalgia and whatever, The Right Stuff, the song, was featured in the pilot of Full House.
Yes, and now that I'm thinking about it, didn't Full House go to a New Kids on the Block concert at Disney World on some special? Isn't this all corporate synergy with
Didn't they go to a New Kids? I feel like that might be true. I don't remember that, though.
I feel like I have a memory of watching at your house in Florida an old TV special.
Wait, but it wasn't Full House. It wasn't an episode of Full House. It was a special. It was the New Kids concert at Disney, Epcot, something in Disney World. And it was, they preempted TGIF, like the last 2 shows on TGIF. So they had a regular Full House episode that week. And then the Full House gang hosted, like they always did those interstitials, the ABC New Kids on the Block Disney World concert.
So New Kids on the Block and Disney and ABC and all of this, they've all been in bed together from the start. And so, this is nothing new. They all are
trying to sell kids, right?
Yeah. So, this is not the first time that these people have all been together. So this episode is going to be all about DJ turning 39. They're planning a surprise party for her. They've got the whole thing of she's like the type A personality. She's, telling them how to do the surprise party. She takes out her dream board, right? Or Steph produces the dream board. Right. Because she says, like, I read it, when I want to go to sleep or something.
Steph and Kimmy Gibbler, they were using her dream board that they found, like in the basement or something. They were using that to kind of create the perfect surprise party because DJ's turning 39. And so one of the things that's on there is something about Ryan Gosling, which I thought was really funny because Ryan Gosling was on... What's that? The Mickey Mouse Club. He was like a little kid when New Kids, he's our age. So he was like a little kid when New Kids were famous. Like he was on Star Search and trying to audition for boy bands like New Kids on the Block. And then instead started doing it, got cast in movies and started going that route. So it was just really funny that they had like grown up Ryan Gosling on her vision board and New Kids on the Block, as though she had been making her vision board and keeping, like, just updating it for 20 years.
Right, with all of the, Disney related hunks.
But not, because she had current Ryan Gosling on there. That's what I'm saying. It was like out of time.
Can we give props to Ryan Gosling for a full decade being the go-to guy of like a sexy dude?
Of hotness? He totally replaced Clooney. Like, I think so. Like, definitely. Clooney was the one that, and I still feel like a little bit like
Clooney's 70 years old now. He's aged out of it.
People still talk about, Clooney, right? But it's people. Gosling, right? Like, Gosling
from
is...
From 2015 till present day. Oh, he's no Ryan Gosling.
Exactly.
So, absolutely. Anyway, all right.
Yay, good for you, Ryan.
All right. Let's pick up the pace here. They decided to get DJ...
We're so nostalgic.
That's true. They got DJ New Kids on the Block tickets, right? They're going to the New Kids concert.
Exactly.
That leads to a triple Oh My Lanta, right? We got to do that.
Because she can't say God because she's Candace Cameron Bure.
Yeah, but that was one of her catchphrases. Mm-hmm. And then when, DJ goes off in the other room, Steph looks at the tickets and find out, these are for New Kids on the Clock.
Yes.
They're counterfeit. But here's the thing. And again, 2015... this show is coming out. She asks Kimmy, where did you get these tickets? Kimmy says, I found a guy online. But she didn't get the actual tickets online. She found a guy online and then met him at a rest
gas
stop.
Station bathroom.
Yeah, and he gave her these janky physical tickets, which seems a little weird, but whatever. It's Kimmy Gibbler. So that's like the quest of the episode now. How are Stephanie and Kimmy going to somehow get tickets to New Kids on the Block instead of New Kids on the Clock?
Exactly.
And like I said, this is going to be one where we get a nice taste of the band.
Yeah.
We get a lot of them. It all starts when Kimmy and Stephanie decide to ambush them in their limo. They just kind of force their way in. It's the same kind of shot we were talking about in our Learning to Drive episode. We've got that simple, straightforward, wide shot over the hood of the car where you're looking into you see the limo driver and you see the fogged up back of the limo, right? So you know as soon as it starts this scene, like, okay, it's gonna, pull it down at some point.
Not fogged up. It's a black divider.
Yeah, but you could see some like blurriness behind them.
I think that's just bad reflection, bad glare off the black divider.
Fair enough. But so they trick the limo driver and they throw his phone.
Can we just say for a second, what was that movie with Eisenberg and Kieran Culkin?
A Royal Pain or A Real Pain?
A Real Pain. Yeah, Royal Pains is a TV show on USA, right? A Real Pain. So Kieran Culkin's character, say that 3 times fast. Kieran Culkin's character in A Real Pain is Kimmy Gibbler. She is so charming and annoying and psychopathic.
Obsessed with the Holocaust.
He's not obsessed with the Holocaust. He's just going on a trip and gets in his own head.
He gets mad at everybody when they don't.
Yeah, but that wasn't his whole character. His whole character is that he's a little bit weird and gets obsessive about things and is super charming and then his personality just turns on a dime. This is Kimmy Gibbler. I didn't realize it till we had that scene in the limo where she, in 3 sentences, somehow convinces the limo driver to leave because she's talking to him and he's like, she's not harmful, whatever. And she picks up his phone and throws it out of the car. And he's like, if you cracked my screen, and then he gets out of the car and then she's got control of the vehicle. Whole thing's wild. And then the screen comes down and they turn around to talk to the New Kids on the Block. And they're like, Kimmy Gibbler, she used to stalk us and steal our clothes. It is just wild. She knows everybody, but they're all terrified of her. I was like, she is Kieran Culkin's inspiration.
Yeah, well, and you mentioned Gibby, but she's definitely an inspiration for Sam, I think, and iCarly.
Oh, 100%. Yes.
Similar vibe. But so now we've got this whole big scene where we've got 4 out of the 5 new kids, Donnie Wahlberg. This is one example where I think the excuse they give in the world of the show actually is the real excuse.
Yes.
They say Donnie can't come. He's solving a mystery on Blue Bloods.
Yes.
CBS Monday nights or whatever. But you've got the 4 other new kids hanging out in the back of the limo, and we get this whole little dialogue scene with Stephanie and Kimmy in the front seat talking to them through the thing,
and they're trying to get tickets and the guys are like, sorry, not gonna give you tickets because you're crazy. And she's like, look, here's what happened, will you at least come sing happy birthday to my friend? And they were like, oh, okay. So then they agree that if she leaves them alone and gets out of the car, they will come to her friend's house and sing happy birthday to her.
Yeah. Now, can we just stop for a second and talk about this, the makeup of this band? All of these bands is this the only one that have brothers? Doesn't one of the other ones have brothers?
Let's see. There are brothers in 98 Degrees. No, there's not brothers. One Direction was put together on Britain's Got Talent, or X Factor in the UK. And so they all auditioned individually. And Nicole Scherzinger, who was a judge with Simon Cowell at that time, was like, oh, we should put these guys together as a band. And Simon was like, that's a good idea. And One Direction was formed from the X Factor.
All right. Here's I guess what I'm getting at. I've noticed that a lot of times there are brothers, but maybe that's not the case.
Well, like I said, there's brothers in this one, there's brothers in 98 Degrees, and I think there might be brothers in LFO, but I can't remember.
Okay. There's usually a sort of baby face cute one,
Yep.
right? That's your Joey McIntyre, your Lance Bass. On the maybe that's debatable. On the Bob's Burgers Boys for Now episode, they have a character that's like, meant to be that. And then it seems like
Davy Jones from the Monkees.
Mm-hmm. And then it seems like, I don't want to be mean about it, there's always a guy who's like visibly older and not handsome. Like there was that guy in the Backstreet Boys. I feel like that was like
That's Danny.
And then there's this guy in New Kids on the Block that is just like, what is this guy's deal? Like, especially now, I'm like, this guy looks like he is played by Danny Trejo. Like,
Which
this guy
are you talking about?
I'm talking about the guy who's just by process of elimination, not any of the Knights, not Joey McIntyre, not Donnie Wahlberg.
It's Danny, like I just said.
Yeah, all right.
Oh,
Danny,
yeah, okay, all right. I see what you're saying.
I'm
You're saying that there's one of those also in the Backstreet Boys.
Yes.
I wonder which one you mean.
And maybe I'm confusing it with NSYNC because, like I said, I really didn't have much familiarity.
But yes, so every band has a Ringo, right? That's what it is.
Yeah.
Every band has a
Except
Ringo.
Ringo is like a funny little, like, goofy guy. This guy looks like he just stepped off the prison yard. Like, especially now.
Yeah, but back in the day, he was just the, like, whatever. People called him the ugly one, which is awful. People called him the Ringo.
I know.
And people call him the other one. And the other one is one that like, the way it kind of sticks, right? So generally, the other one is there because they are either a really good bass or a really high tenor. So in Backstreet Boys, you have Howie, who is a baby face, but he isn't like Nick Carter, the real baby face. And Howie is the one that sings the super high notes, like really high tenor. And so he was the other one in that band.
But in New Kids, and I'm asking this sincerely,
yeah,
like, does their presence in this and their makeup have anything to do with actual singing and harmonizing and anything?
Well, yeah, again, so Danny in this group, Danny is the bass. He can sing really, really low. He holds down the bass lines. You had Donnie, who is kind of like a nice mid-range voice, but he also did rapping. That's AJ in the Backstreet Boys. They're the same, right? Yep, they're the tough guy. And then you have kind of the two guys who are like the leading guys and are pretty, one of them's a baby face usually. That's Joey McIntyre or Nick Carter in the Backstreet Boys. And then you've got like the main kind of singer guy who sort of sings most of the melodies. That's Jordan Knight in New Kids on the Block. And in the Backstreet Boys, that is Brian McLean. Brian, I don't remember his last name. And then you have, and the last guy in New Kids on the Block was like the older, quiet one, right? He also turned out to be gay, so you kind of always have the gay one as well.
He's one of the Knights.
And that's Jonathan Knight. He is actually older than all of them, but he isn't the one that you think looks like an old guy. That's Jonathan.
I actually think Donnie looks the oldest.
Well, I mean, maybe, but not back in the day. I think Donnie was like the bad boy back in the day.
Yeah.
I feel like Danny always looked the oldest back in the day. But anyway, so yeah, and then you have Jonathan, who was closeted just like Lance Bass and NSYNC was closeted for all those years.
Yeah, and those two, modern version, I think Joey looks great. He always did. He still has the light eyes and the baby face and everything.
Oh, yeah.
They're all still in pretty good shape. The Night Boys look, I guess because I didn't have that much of a sense of them, they just to me looked like Ralph Macchio or something, just these sort of like vaguely lumpy brown-haired guys. And then, like I said, you have the guy who looks like he stepped off the prison.
Jordan and Joey both had like solo careers at around the same time that the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC and Britney Spears were popular. They had solo albums that were on TRL and were pretty big there for a while. Like they were out on tour again.
What is Jordan night's most famous solo
Oh,
song.
geez. It was like you'd know it too. I can only remember the video right now, but he was like in a carnival and he's doing a bunch of dance moves with a bunch of dancers behind him at a carnival.
We'll watch it later.
Something about girl, because it's always about something girl.
So we've set up the new kids have agreed. Have they agreed to come over, or have they given them tickets?
No, they said they'll come over and
because
sing.
they can't give them
They can't give them tickets. They were like, no, but we'll come over and sing to your friends.
So that's their surprise. And we get the whole birthday party thing. I feel like we don't really need to go into that. There's just one thing I want to flag, that we're going to talk about iCarly later, right? And Dan Schneider and his whole weird sense of humor that he always needs to have.
The fact that the show started with a foot massage
and all that stuff. I got to say, this Fuller House show has a dirty mind also. And it's not in exactly the same way, but much more so than the original Full House.
Yes, because they know it's adults that are watching. They know that the people that are watching now were kids back then.
And they want kids to watch too, and I think they just frankly don't really care if a little bit of these sex jokes go to the kids.
Right.
And so there's just a lot of these double entendres. There's the size matters joke because Kimmy's boyfriend brings the gigantic present, and I just like. It boggles my mind that, like, of all of the jokes that should be retired that are just lame, trite, hackneyed, the top of the list to me is size matters, that they're still making, like, literally that same joke. People are saying that 2-word phrase, size matters, and expecting to get a laugh.
It will always get a laugh.
Not from me. And then later on...
Shay says retire the bit.
Later on, there's a point when, I don't remember if it's, her new boyfriend or her old boyfriend. One of them comes in and goes, "Ladies, I am about to make all of you scream with pleasure." And it's just like, that's fun. Like, I'm not clutching my pearls and being like, oh my God, how did he say that? But it's just like they're bending over backwards to do these silly sex innuendos and stuff. So I just want to say, like, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Fuller House and iCarly, like, they're both trading in that sort of
Yeah, but you have
stuff.
grown-ups making the jokes on Fuller House. You have children doing that
Fair enough.
on iCarly. So it is very different because who are those shows really for? Grown-ups are not really watching iCarly. You and I, as grown-ups, watched iCarly because we were babysitting children who were into watching it, and then we realized the show was good, and we got into it. But it was on Nickelodeon, and it wasn't trying to, capture a grown-up audience.
True.
Whereas Fuller House knows that people who watched Full House are now grown up watching it, and they're having a little bit of fun.
Yeah. So the birthday thing results in DJ having to go to the dentist because her kids put her treasure key or whatever, the key to open her present in her cupcake or something.
Right. That was the joke about Lori Loughlin. They were following like the hidden key when she got engaged, like movies. The hidden ring. Yes, from this Hallmark movie. So the son that you like, whatever his name is, the middle one.
Yeah, I think he's Jackson.
Yeah, he was the one that hid it, and then she broke her crown, and so she had to go off to the dentist, and then she comes back, and she's super high from oral surgery.
She's not even back yet when the new kids show up.
Right,
and
exactly.
So I feel like this is a pretty standard sub-trope of these kinds of things. They have to, like, stall them, and just, like, the rest of the family has to keep the new kids
busy
there in the house. And so we get, a fair amount of new kids action. Like, we get all of them interacting with the different characters. It's kind of unfortunate we don't have any of the adult characters back, we don't get
you have Kimmy.
Yeah, but I mean
there.
the adults. I mean, you don't have...
Oh, you mean the original adults.
Uncle Jesse or Bob Saget hanging out with,
They had blown their guest star budget on the new kids. They couldn't afford the others as well.
Yeah.
But so they're hanging out for quite some time. They make mistakes, start to sing happy birthday to Ramona, Kimmy's daughter. She stops them. They're just chilling.
Hang on. Can we talk about Ramona for a second? She's all excited about the new kids on the block.
Yes.
I don't buy that. A 13-year-old girl in 2015, I think, would be like, I get that it's supposed to be like, well, I listened to her because of my mom, but I don't think she would recognize them or care.
Oh, that didn't click with me, and the reason being is that this was around the time that they were that they were on tour and releasing songs again, and so they were making lots of appearances. So I just kind of was like, oh, she must know who they are. I just
feel like, think of the kids that we know, the kids between 10, 15 years old.
Yeah, but it's not
they care
the same,
about
right? Like, so look, iCarly, the iCarly that we watched was from 2012. That's 4 years before this. So this would have been a kid that like knew about One Direction 4 years before she meets the New Kids on the Block, and she 100% would have been, told about them and listened to them. I think that tracked, and it was totally fine. It was very cute nonetheless, and it made me kind of laugh because it was like, man, and I was thinking about this like a few weeks ago before we even chose this trope for this show, was that, it's got to be so weird for like your entire life to have 13-year-old girls, whether you're 10 or 40, screaming about you. Like, that's got to be so strange.
Well, that's kind of what I'm saying, is that I don't think there are that many 13-year-olds screaming about them now.
Well, I don't know. Maybe.
So we get first... DJ isn't there at all, and we get all the stuff of the family, trying to keep the new kids. And then finally she does show up, but she's hopped up on pain meds, and so she's acting all weird. She's draping herself all over Joey McIntyre and touching his chest. It was
hilarious. It was so funny. I loved that part because Joey was my favorite. Well, okay, I say that, but I also really was into Jonathan for a while because I like the quiet type. Jay.
They're really the only two that were good looking, honestly.
No, you are confusing Jonathan with Jordan again.
Maybe.
Yeah, you always do. It's okay. So it was very sweet. She was like draped all over him, and it made me remember this story about a friend of mine who was a teacher with me in Amsterdam, and she lived in New York for a while, and right after college, and taught in the city. And it was at the same time she was teaching there that Joey McIntyre was playing Fiyero in Wicked on Broadway. And somehow they like bumped into each other somewhere, and like a friend of hers knew a friend of his or something. Anyway, he asked her out on a date, and she went out on a date with Joey frickin' McIntyre. And I was like, my friend's name is Heidi. And I was like, Heidi, that is the best story ever. How are you not married to Joey McIntyre? And she's like, it was a shitty date.
He's not gay?
No, Joey McIntyre is not gay. Jonathan, the oldest one, Jordan's older brother, is gay.
More than one of them can be gay.
Yes, I know, but we've already talked about this. There's always the gay one.
I guess I was confusing it with Lance Bass. I definitely thought he was gay.
Joey McIntyre is very straight and also apparently a boring date.
All right. Yeah, that's hard to believe on multiple levels. But anyway, so yeah, they have to leave eventually. They're like, look, we've, humored you long enough. We have to get to our concert. I still don't get why they can't just give her a backstage pass to the concert. But so DJ misses them again, because she doesn't remember any of this. So she wakes up the next morning. I had a dream about Joey McIntyre.
She wakes up a few hours later.
Okay.
They squished all of this. Like, her oral surgery happened in a matter of 45 minutes.
Yeah.
She took a 2-hour nap, and all those crazy pain meds are gone, and now she's ready to go to a concert. And then, and that's when
they have to confess that they're not even going.
Right.
She didn't even know
that's when the old boyfriend comes in and is like, and he is the one who has scored the tickets, but because his present was a hit in the original gift opening scene, he says that it's her new boyfriend that was able to score the tickets.
Yeah, Steve, the ex-boyfriend, who is very, benevolent, basically frames the new boyfriend for getting these tickets.
And so he knows, he's got a patient that works at the arena, and so he was able to get good tickets, and so off they go to the concert.
Yes, typical Das-esque New Kids.
Yes, and the last 10 minutes of the show is was the three of them like having concert shenanigans, and they're up on stage with them at this concert, and they're, doing all sorts of crazy things. They keep taking the microphone and singing and pointing out their friends and stuff.
Now, one of the many Full House episodes we covered was when they went on stage with the Beach Boys at their Hawaiian vacation or whatever, and we talked about how that was a legit, real concert where like thousands of concert goers saw the cast of Full House performing with the band. That was not the case here. What we get is cross-cuts of B-roll of an audience
we
like
have
up
real
in the
crowd
rafters
footage,
from a real
a New Kids show
concert.
And then you have up close a set that
of
they've
about 100
got,
extras,
exactly,
and like confetti and just this very like it's a little like cabaret theater that they're trying to convince you is like Madison Square
stadium,
Garden. And I wrote down, this is my nightmare. To be, one of the things that happens is DJ gets to sit on stage while the guy just like sings to her.
Well, so they do that in their show.
I know,
like, that's
and
part
I would
of the
hate
thing. To be serenaded or to be there watching someone else be serenaded?
To be serenaded. To be on stage
Mental
sitting
note,
there.
doing that for your next birthday.
Just like have someone sing to you. And I know that's like a real thing that a lot of these singers
don't
do.
go, girl.
Yeah. So, we get lots of New Kids references, of course, throughout this whole thing, between just referencing the names of the songs and the dialogue, and then they sing like 2 or 3 of the songs, kind of truncated versions.
Yes, they do a little. They do a little mixtape at the end. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, and you can just see. You're watching Stephanie and DJ and Kimmy just live out my 9-year-old girl fantasy, and theirs too, right? Like that's like they hit what they were going for. They hit the nail on the head. Like they pinged all the nostalgia, things that they could ping, and they really did a good job with it. And it was so much fun. And they got exactly what they were going for. They did it well.
Yeah, this was a good one. Like we said, lots of action with the New Kids. It is funny that Donnie's not there even for the concert.
No, he's not there for the concert, but he also didn't go on tour with them for a while because of Blue Bloods.
Reason.
Yeah, because of Blue Bloods. Like,
but how did they? But their harmony is so fragile. How did they do it without
their
his?
harmony is so fragile? Shut your face, Jay. Half of it's all backing tracks and background singers, and so they also had. We forgot to mention though, they did when they sang "Happy Birthday" to DJ as she was passed out on the couch. They called him up on the iPad real quick, and they have his little face on the iPad, and he's not singing "Happy Birthday" because they weren't going to be able to sync that up, but they go "Happy Birthday to you," and he goes "Happy Birthday."
Yeah, he goes happy every time.
And he adds in and he goes to DJ and adds in little snippets. It was very cute.
Yes, they call him so fast as though every iPad had a button on it that automatically dials Donnie Wahlberg.
FaceTime sound was bloop. It wasn't even like half of a ring, and he was there, and they flipped it over and they started singing. It was like, wow, I've never connected with anyone that quickly.
Yeah, but all right, let's continue with Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Season 2, episode 18, the band episode.
Yeah, so this was a very silly episode. We've got the overlapping trope here where this is going to be about the characters forming a band, right? I have never seen this plot point handled so quickly. The cold open is Harvey coming up to Sabrina and the other friend in the halls and going, "Hey guys, there's a battle of the bands. Why don't we enter it?" And they go, "But we're not a band." And he goes, "Well, everybody has to start somewhere." And that's it.
Yeah, he's like, "Well, I already signed us up." And Sabrina's like, "I always wanted to be in a band." Okay. And that's it. So then they're going to figure out and be a band.
They don't play any musical instruments.
They're like, "Shouldn't we learn how to play an instrument?"
Knowledge.
We'll figure it out.
Yep. And so they just jump into this story about this Battle of the Bands. Yeah.
So Valerie plays lead guitar. That's Lindsay Sloan, her good friend. Harvey plays the drums, and Sabrina is playing bass. It seems to me that the guy playing Harvey, Nate Richard is his name. He actually does play drums because there were definitely in one of the scenes when they were good, when they were like, you know, when after they drink the talent juice and they got good, it really looked like he was playing.
Sure. You know, this is a pretty standard Sabrina storyline, right? Where they suck, they're not good, so...
And her nemesis, what's her name? Libby.
Yes.
Her nemesis, Libby, is good. And she's got a band that's like Spice Girls.
Yeah, this is the strangest part of this episode to me. They keep saying that Libby has this real talent and her band is good. Her band isn't a band, it's a dance troupe. Like, these four girls. Do they even sing? I didn't think they sing.
She's the lead singer, but they're like backing her up and singing background vocals and harmonizing.
They really seem to me like they're just dancing.
Well, that's because they mostly are. But you could even see the way they were dressed. Like they had the black girl dressed like Scary Spice. They had like the one girl dressed like Posh with the black hair.
So I guess that's how you're supposed to take it. It just, to me, it was such a bizarre apples and oranges thing where you have Sabrina and her friends trying to play musical instruments, and they're doing badly because they don't know how to play the instruments, and they keep
also can't sing.
Yeah, but they keep comparing themselves to this other group that isn't really trying to do anything. Like they're playing music, like pre-recorded music. I'm like, why can't Sabrina do that? Maybe if you guys tried to do what they're doing, it wouldn't be as hard. Just dance and sing along to a track instead of trying to play instruments you don't know how to play.
Right, but
that's what's better about Libby. She's smart enough to know not to just pick up a guitar.
No, but they say that later, that Libby can really sing and Sabrina can't sing, and that's the issue. And so then at the end, when Sabrina realizes that using magic to win the contest wasn't a good idea, and she, you know, summons Libby, and then she's like, you can sing, we need a singer, I can't sing.
Yeah.
And that is what convinces her to do it.
Yeah, but before that happens, she gives them the potion or whatever, and so
they practice and they're really bad, and then they have and then Sabrina is like talking to her aunt trying to figure out, well, so what can we do, I want to get better and whatever, and then she decides to cheat and just have this like sip of talent, so they all drink the potion.
Yeah, and so when they take the stage and they're like miraculously good, they play One Way or Another, right? Is that Pat Benatar?
That's
Blondie, okay. The reason why I would have known that song at this time probably is because that was used in these commercials for New Jersey tax amnesty.
Are you saying that you wouldn't have just known Blondie because of radio in the 80s?
I might have.
I loved that song.
Honestly, like I may or may not have been aware of it. But in the early 90s, they started using that song for these throughout the tri-state area, but it was the New Jersey tax amnesty thing where they were saying, like, if you owe taxes that you haven't paid, come forward and we'll like show you mercy. Otherwise, you're going to have to pay the full amount because one way or another, we're going to get you. And they would play this song, the One Way or Another song,
That's amazing.
During the commercial. So it's your standard storyline. They're a good band. So Harvey and Valerie become prima donnas and everything.
Sabrina too. Yeah. They all are wearing like crazy weird hair extensions and way too much makeup and like not normal clothes anymore. And yeah, it's really funny. Like they do look like, bands, like music people of the time.
Well, yeah, Harvey's look is the camo. He's got the army shirt, but it's like sleeveless.
I was gonna say, it's just the vest. Like everybody always was sleeveless. That was the thing then.
And does he have the like fingerless gloves?
Oh, I don't remember that if he has the fingerless gloves, but he's wearing earrings and they all have these weird, really thick highlight streaks in their hair and everything, which is just like fake that they put in for this, like fake hair. It's kind of fun. And so they start fighting immediately because they all, that's what the bad side of talent is, that you all think you're better than everybody, including your bandmates. So then their friendship kind of falls to pieces. And then Sabrina realizes it. She doesn't really want to give up the attention and the fame, but she realizes that it's probably for the best. And so what's his name? The cat. Salem tells her that if they drink flat talent, right? Because the talent drink is a fizzy drink. If they drink flat talent, then their talent will go flat.
This is every episode of Sabrina, right? It's never like spells per se, it is, but there's always some element of like, oh, he ate the lemon of destiny, so you have to give him a sour lemon.
It's very Alice in Wonderland, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, so she lets some talent drink go flat, and then they don't want to drink it, and then they eat hot hummus, so then they drink it, and then everybody's bad. But then before they can go on stage and be bad, the principal comes over and is like, hey, my nephew, who is like hosting this talent competition, put his neck on the line for you guys for me, and I happen to be living with his mom, my sister, right now. So if you guys suck, I'm out of a place to live, and that can't happen, which is like totally inappropriate for a principal to say, but whatever, it's Sabrina. We don't care. And so
she summons Libby.
Yes, she realizes that they have to do something. So what is the name of the guy that plays the principal?
Martin Mull.
Thank you. Who is a great actor.
Legendary.
But this is like no good. Like he's Mr. Feeney, but he's not as good as Mr. Feeney.
No, he still has, Carolyn Ray, all the adults in this, they have that natural presence where it's a little bit better for having them in it, but they don't really get to do anything.
Exactly.
Good.
It doesn't activate the talent that they have. But anyway, so then, so she summons Libby, and Libby is like, okay, I'll sing for you, but not for you, just because I know I'm a good singer. And they get by because she sings her same song.
Yeah, but this makes no sense.
They play the backing track, and then they pretend to play.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I guess I didn't understand that. I thought that it was just like, well, now that they don't have to sing, everything will be okay. And they were ignoring the fact that somehow they're still playing their musical instruments well, even though they don't have magical talents anymore. Okay. I was wondering, backtracking a little, you mentioned Harvey you thought maybe he was really drumming, or he really knew how to play drums.
One way or another, I think he was playing.
Do you think that was really Melissa singing?
That's a good question. It was it wasn't great. Like, it was just sort of,
it definitely didn't.
It was on key and auto-tuned and produced and stuff, but it wasn't like anything fabulous. So probably
I just
was
wonder,
her.
like, I'm trying to think back to, because after a while it became almost standard that like these actresses doing this kind of thing would also be singers and have an album or something.
She never put out an album.
Didn't do that, did she?
But she would, she was in the video for Britney Spears's
Drive Me Crazy.
Yeah, because that was part of the movie Drive Me Crazy tie-in. But I don't know. I think it probably was her, but it was just, kind of it was not like one way or another. It's not a hard song. You kind of slide all over the place,
Yeah. I was just curious. But yeah, so, it's classic Sabrina style, easy come, easy go, right? She used magic recklessly. She learned her lesson. It's back where she started. Yeah. And then we get, the only boy band, evidence in this is, and I honestly don't, like, if I was watching this, I don't think I even would have known what I was seeing. But we see the basketball team.
Are those the Backstreet Boys?
Yeah. The basketball team is practicing in the gym. They find the soda. They drink the soda.
There's one soda left, and we have the scene where Sabrina's trying to throw out all the bottles, and she's like, I brewed 6. There's only 5 here. Salem, where's the other one? And he's like, well, I don't know. She's thinking Salem is like, taking a bottle in case he ever needs it or whatever. And he's like, I don't know. I haven't seen it. And it turns out it got left back at the gym, and they all share it. And then boom, they all get get really good at singing and they immediately start harmonizing a cappella, mind you, so you know that they can do it. And they walk up on the little stage there and they're just kind of harmonizing away.
Yeah, so that's the little end tag, is a fun appearance by the Backstreet Boys.
Yep.
And so, yeah, look, I will say that honestly, this is one of the most stressful aspects of doing this podcast sometimes, is choosing these shows and getting this lineup down of the commonality of these tropes, and then being on like minute 25 of this episode and being like, did we waste our time? Does this truly have nothing to do with this?
Right.
And so, you know, when this finally happened, it's like, all right, at least that's something. But honestly, like, these are the different approaches that sitcoms take to these guest spots. And the reality is that it's still something they'll advertise as like, oh, this week on Sabrina, you know.
The Backstreet Boys.
Yeah, sometimes they won't, and it'll be just like a fun little surprise. But yeah, I feel like I like that we get that spectrum of like, it could be the whole episode built around them, or it can be 10 seconds at the end where the basketball team turns out to be Backstreet. All right. Moving on to Just Shoot Me.
Season 5, Episode 2, A Night at the Plaza, featuring 98 Degrees.
Yeah, so I was going to say this was our second time covering Just Shoot Me.
Nope.
Then I realized when we started watching this, I've never seen this before. That
you've never seen it before?
Rules of Engagement was the David Spade show that
Which
we
was
had covered.
later than this.
Yes. Just Shoot Me. I mean, I'm not saying I had never seen like a single moment of it, but this was not one I watched. David Spade for a long time for me was a hard pass. David Spade, Rob Schneider. I love SNL now.
But Tommy Boy wasn't your jam.
No, it wasn't.
Like
we've talked about this before. I would turn my nose up at that kind of stuff because 90s, especially late 90s, which was when those SNL alums were doing their, you know, post SNL projects. I was not interested in Sandler or Chris Farley movies. I was going to see Michel Gondry and, you know, Stanley Kubrick films. And I really, I wasn't into that. And especially Spade and Schneider were the two that were like, keep them away.
That's so interesting. So I always like Spade's snark, and you know, he did that Hollywood update or whatever, Hollywood Minute on Weekend Update. That was his little thing, and it was like a talk soup before there was talk soup kind of a thing. He was, you know, it was all like Hollywood gossip, and he was pretty snarky. He was like a cross between Joan Rivers on, you know, What Are They Wearing, or, you know, What Did They Wear, or whatever that show was that she did, and talk soup. And I did think that was very funny. And then there was this whole turn of like, now he's so famous, he can't do that anymore because he's not punching up. Like, it worked when he was on SNL as a bit player because he was punching up, but now he is famous and dating Heather Locklear. So like, he's punching down. He can't do it anymore. And I kind of thought that was like an interesting, I mean, it's like, what a great career trajectory to have, right? That you're so famous that you can't do the thing that made you famous. I don't know. Yeah. I did watch this. It was on like right before Frasier and like, or after Seinfeld. It was on, and then when Seinfeld went off the air, it was one of the ones that was up for the Seinfeld time slot, but then Frasier got that time slot, so this was like following Frasier. Yeah, I mean, it definitely was a show that I watched, not religiously, but like if it was on, I'd watch it.
Yeah. Everyone in this is pretty good. You know, we've got George Segal as the boss, and Laura San Giacomo as his daughter, and you got Brian Posehn in there as the goofy, male guy.
Yeah, he is always considered a guest star. He was never a featured or regular actor, even though he guest starred in like 80% of the episodes. And then you also have Wendy Malick, who I think is very funny.
Yes, she is the one from Seinfeld. Here's my thing, like, everyone on this show, and I think this is the case of a lot of shows in this late 90s, early 2000s period, is a known entity, you know, like
Drew Carey.
But yeah,
like the Drew Carey show. This is sort of around the same time.
But what I'm saying is, I don't think that's a plus. Like, you think of how like Schitt's Creek and New Girl, like they had these people that were like, oh, who are they? Like they just came out of nowhere, and you're like, oh, I want to watch this show now because I've never seen anyone like Dan Levy. I've never seen anyone like Schmidt or Winston or whatever.
Yeah.
And with these ones, it's more like, oh, we've assembled this little dream team. Like, oh, isn't it cool? We got David Spade and this guy and that guy. And it's like, yeah, it's cool to assemble this lineup of people that we know can do good work, but it's missing that element of surprise.
Well, and this is the year 2000. This is season 5. I think it was canceled midway through season 6. And this is one of these shows in that sitcom wasteland, right? Like, we're beyond the sort of classic Friday night. I mean, well, TGIF is still a thing, right? Like it was still on the air even at this time. But like that kind, for us, especially in 2000, like we're in college, we've moved on. Yeah. The shows that are on in the evenings, like I'm either doing homework or I'm out. More likely I'm out, you know, and it doesn't matter if it's a weeknight or not because I'm in college.
No, and multi-camera sitcoms in general were drying up, and The Office was about to sort of shake things up.
Exactly. And so, but you had a million of these workplace sitcoms that were just like this. They had one kind of pretty famous comedian and then a few other actors around them that were pretty, you know, like strong key players and could do things. City. You had Spin City. You had Suddenly Susan. This show didn't get picked up the first season that it was aired because it lost out to a time slot with Suddenly Susan. That was the Brooke Shields. She runs a magazine she runs like a talent agency or something. I don't remember. And so, you know, it's all kind of the same. You had News Radio, like all of these shows, and they all sort of like Joe Rogan is on News Radio, but guest stars in Just Shoot Me. You know what I mean? Like all of these shows are kind of these workplace sitcoms. They're trying to like have the same feel that something like Friends did, but it's not going to be Friends because they're going to do it in a workplace.
Is there a single sitcom ever that could not be called Just Shoot Me? Like, it is the most generic.
Workplace.
No, but why couldn't you just call I Love Lucy Just Shoot Me?
Just Shoot Me?
Or Married with Children Just Shoot Me? Or The Honeymooners Just Shoot. Like, it just, I remember thinking that at the time, like, what is this? Like, it's just like they're not even trying. It's just like, well, it's about people and they get mad sometimes. Yeah.
I feel like it's true for a lot of these sitcoms. Like, they come up with, you know, a generic.
But I guess that's what I'm saying is that, like, yeah, Give Me a Break is generic too, What's Happening, etc. But that's the 80s. Like, this is the year 2000 where we're about to have some really innovative stuff. You know, and you still have people going, Just Shoot Me.
And you know what they did with their really innovative stuff? They called it The Office. Oh, so innovative.
It's not, no,
they
you're
called
right.
it New Girl. Oh, so innovative.
Honestly, like, yeah, kind of. Those names are different and interesting, and they're not generic in the way that Just Shoot Me is. They're very simple.
Yes, you could call any workplace sitcom The Office.
I know you could, but I don't know. To me, it's not the same. It's not as trite and hackneyed as Just Shoot Me.
No, definitely not. In terms of like, hey, what sort of cliche or like random statement that people say can we use to title this show? And I completely agree with you. And it doesn't really have anything to do with the magazine or anything.
Who is supposed to be saying that?
Right.
Whose point of view is that even from? You know,
couldn't tell you.
But yeah, like you knew at least who loved Lucy when it was if there's an I or a me.
You knew who Mary Tyler Moore was.
But anyway, yeah, this, similar to Sabrina, the boy band is going to be a small part of this. But unlike Sabrina, there isn't necessarily a ton of interesting stuff here to talk about. The main story...
There wasn't anything interesting in Sabrina to talk about.
The main story in this is going to be George Siegel's character. He's getting a divorce. He doesn't want anybody to know about it.
Yeah, it's divorce number 5. So, like, set up for the show. They work at a magazine. George Siegel is the owner of the magazine, and his daughter, Laura San Giacomo, she works at the magazine as a reporter, and she is dating a photographer at the magazine, and that guy's name is...
He's that great actor. I don't know his name, but he's Veronica Mars's dad. He's in
right.
Galaxy
and I didn't watch
Quest.
that, so you knew who he was.
He's really good.
Yeah, his name's Enrico Colatoni, and he plays Elliot in the show. And then you have David Spade. He is George Siegel's character. He's Jack's assistant. This magazine is called Blush. It's supposed to be like Vogue. And then you have Wendy Malick, who plays Nina Van Horn, and she is a former model who now is like a talent scout and an editor at
I get kind of a heady vibe off of
Yes,
her.
a total heady from, I was going to say that while we were watching it, from Herman's Head. She is, all about materialistic sex, and she just is like trying to sleep her way to the top.
Give me your credit card,
Exactly. So that's the main cast, and just like any workplace sitcom, there's always something personal happening and something work related happening, and those things are kind of going on. In this one, Jack is on marriage number 5, and he's getting a divorce, and so he doesn't want anybody to know, but his daughter knows, and so there's a little bit of shenanigans with that. You've got David Spade's character, who is an awful lot like Andy Dick's character in News Radio. Yeah. He's like this boyish assistant. Everybody kind of, laughs at him, but he's their gamma, the one that everybody like beats up on, right? Like that's what he is. And so he is in a band. He keeps talking about how he's in a band. And so he's like trying to write songs the whole episode. And then you have Laura San Giacomo's character, Maya, and her boyfriend, Elliot, are getting into an argument, and that's it. Like that's the whole show.
Classic ABC story. Yeah, I'm not really inclined to go into too much detail about all of this. This is another one where I'm watching the minutes tick by going like, all right, we're talking boy bands this week. When are they going to get to it?
Where's the boy band?
At least, we know that it's coming because David Spade keeps mentioning he's in a band and no one's interested, but he keeps sort of, he's doing like what Frasier did with his anniversary, this sort of passive aggressive thing, wanting people to ask him about it and stuff. This whole thing, the whole second half of this episode unfolds at the boss's hotel room.
Right, because he's staying at the Plaza because he
just wants to be left alone. That's what the crux of this episode is. George Siegel, who, it's funny, he's this... I'm sure he could play like this warm old guy, but I always associate him with creeps. I just watch.
Oh, that's funny because
Look Who's Talking. He's a creep. To Die For. He's a creep, and he has that vibe to me.
Yeah.
But in this, he seems like a nice guy.
He is. He is a nice guy. He's a little bit eccentric. He's kind of, again, I'll make the News Radio comparison. He is like
weird rich guy. Like
Stephen Root in News Radio. He owns the place, and he's a little bit, eclectic because he is rich. But so, he wants to be left alone, but everybody keeps coming to him with their problems and coming over anyway. And so everybody shows up at his hotel room, some people to make him feel better and some people because they have problems of their own. And he, reams them all out and is like, why are you even here? But David Spade shows up, and he shows up with his whole band, and his band is 98 Degrees.
Well, no, it's not. It's Too Fine.
Sure, but it is played by the guys from 98 Degrees, who, there are brothers in this, Nick Lachey and his brother, whose name I don't remember, and then the other two guys, and the only one whose name I remember now, Drew Lachey, I did remember. That's Nick Lachey's brother, and then the other two guys.
Yeah, So 98 Degrees. So now we're I guess not even that much forward in time from Sabrina. What, 2 years,
2 years
or something?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this is why I was arguing at the beginning that boy bands to me weren't really a thing until the late 90s, because this is a point where now you have not just the one, not just the two. Now you have a whole little org chart of, just like how they had their Britney and Christina, and then, below
Mandy
them,
Moore and Jessica Simpson.
A whole ecosystem of boy bands.
Of pop groups.
Yeah, so 98 Degrees, at this point, yes, I could not be paying less attention to this. I could have told you that there was a band called 98 Degrees, but I couldn't have named any of them, couldn't have picked them out of a lineup, still couldn't tell you what any of their songs are.
They're 98 Degrees, you want to know why?
Because they're hot.
Because they're hot.
Yeah, but
I
they're
don't
all
think that's
hot.
actually the reason, but I just always thought that was really funny.
Do they have a big muscly guy that's not hot like the rest of them?
Sort of. They do have the older guy, right? He was the one at the end who he has the goatee and he's balding, and he has the last line as they're walking out.
Yeah, we should say that even though this doesn't play a huge part in the episode, they get to do more than the Backstreet Boys did in Sabrina.
They sing their big song,
which was what?
Geez, you're calling me out. I don't remember, but they sing their little song, and then
in his hotel room,
in the hotel room, and that is one of their songs.
Yeah. So just so we're clear, the members of 98 Degrees are playing the fictional band Too Fine, and so I guess they're all wearing their normal boy band clothes, and David Spade is wearing
some over the top crazy boy band clothes. He's got a leather jacket with fringe that's hot pink or something, and he's got on leopard print pants, and he's got this headset microphone on, even though it's not plugged into anything, and they're making fun of him about it. And so he looks like a joke, and they're like, hey man, you're a joke. 98 Degrees is a different type of boy band, though, because they don't have 5. They have 4. And this was in this ecosystem that you're talking about, the way to differentiate yourselves from the old New Kids and then the new Backstreet and NSYNC, who all had 5, was to switch it up and have a different number of people. Mm-hmm. So this band, 98 Degrees, has 4 guys, and then LFO, which came out a little bit later, they had 3 guys. And so that was, and then O-Town, I think they went back to 5. They went back to 5 with O-Town, but O-Town was one of those.
Or they have 0, and that's why they're O-Town.
No, O-Town is because of Orlando, and I think O-Town was more of a reality show band. I think they got put together from a reality show. I'm really mining the depths of my 20-year-old memory right now.
Yeah, so they all get to have a little joke or two. They perform their song. Spade is all silly and stupid and, just makes an ass of himself. So they fire him. They all get to kind of yell at him or interact with him a little bit, right? And that's it. And then they finish up the story with, George Siegel kicking them all out and then having a moment where he's feels
like,
lonely,
hey, have you guys
and
ever
invites
seen
them
Duck
back in.
Soup? Which is he just wanted to watch a Marx Brothers movie, and then he's like, the Marx Brothers are better with friends. So everybody comes back in and the story is over and we're all happy friendly again.
Yeah, but so in terms of tracking the boy band thing, we definitely have another opportunity for this week on Just Shoot Me, right? You have the visual punchline of David Spade in this ridiculous getup and the members with him, and you want to know how that's going to happen. It has that appeal to it.
And you get to hear David Spade rap, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah. No, it's that standard thing. I think we talked about that in the hip hop guest stars thing of have the guest stars be cool and have the, sitcom stars make idiots of themselves. And it definitely follows that trope. All right, let's finish it up with iCarly.
Season 5, episode 2, I Go One Direction.
Yeah, I like iCarly more with each passing day. I feel like, because it's new, it's always last when we cover iCarly. So it's always like, it's something pleasant to look forward to. It's going to be actually funny and, engaging. This one is good like they always are. This begins with Spencer coming back from a trip, a vacation or something.
Spencer and Carly, they had gone to Mexico and she had been drinking the water and she got worms.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I guess I didn't get that Carly had been gone. What I noticed was that Spencer, Jerry Trainer playing Spencer, is a smoke show with his 5 o'clock shadow.
Always a smoke show.
Yeah, but at that beginning, they put him in the sombrero and the 5 o'clock shadow, like he hasn't shaved in a long time.
Yes, he's so hot.
Yeah, he's really working
Jerry
it.
Trainer, if you listen to this show, you're like, I'm leaving Jay. Come on over. We love you. Yeah, you and frickin' Balky and I guess Al Borland.
So, definitely first note, Jerry Trainer looking smoking with the 5 o'clock shadow. And they come home to find all of Carly's friends are sort of camped out inside their apartment. Sam is barbecuing indoors. Freddie's playing video games.
Freddie and Gibby are playing video games. And what's his name from the Groovy Smoothie is there. Tebow
he's
from
in
the
the kiddie pool.
He's like, I'm in a kiddie pool. He's so funny.
So this is all to set up that Carly is about to get sick. She's got jungle worms because they were away, I guess, south of the border. So she's got jungle worms. They've got all kinds of funny explanations of what that is.
Give you chills and it makes you really cuddly, and also gives you really bad gastrointestinal issues. Yeah. And so she's dealing with her jungle worms and she's going to be contagious for a little while longer, and she's hoping that it'll go quickly because they've got a big guest coming to star on their show the next time they film. Yeah,
they get an email. Freddie, the producer, of course, who handles everything on his pear tablet, right? That impractically shaped pear tablet. They have an email from One Direction's manager that they would love to come perform on iCarly. So I guess you just have to accept this is, Just Shoot Me. This is season 5 of iCarly.
Yeah, iCarly is famous enough. We've already had her stalker. We've already had a couple other things going on.
This is very famous. To say that they're getting...
In
One
2012,
Direction.
though, I mean, they were just kind of coming up, being popular then, right? Was
for them to be of interest, for them to be on the real show iCarly.
Yeah,
they
it
would
was
have
huge.
to be pretty famous.
But it was still at the very beginning. It wasn't like they had, they were on album 2. You know what I mean? They're on album 1.
We have to sort of buy into this. iCarly is that successful that they've got these A-list music acts wanting to perform on their web show. And so, they're getting ready for that. And interestingly, we don't get an entrance scene for One Direction. I thought it was so odd.
They were in the room when our characters entered.
They just cut to them rehearsing.
Yeah.
They just sort of skip. iCarly has this device where when they do a cut scene, they show the thumbnails as though you're choosing the next chapter on your YouTube video or whatever.
Yeah.
And so, that was so strange that to have a famous guest on a multi-camera sitcom,
right,
where you always get that big pop of the guest
none of them are
entering.
good actors except for Harry. Notice that none of them get to act except for Harry.
Yeah,
and so they cut right to the no awkward, annoying, oh, hi, we're One Direction, blah, blah, blah. They cut right to them doing what they're good at, which is performing.
Yeah,
and the girls and Gibby, obsessed with One Direction, just staring at them.
I don't totally agree that they actually do throughout the episode give them a fair amount to do.
Yeah,
I would argue
I
overall
think it was they didn't need it.
Yeah, I'm not saying they needed to give them a lot of acting. I'm saying that regardless of whether you're giving them a lot or a little to do, you always want to have the moment where they first walk on, even if you're not challenging them with acting stuff. I just thought it was such a strange choice, and I wonder if it was a choice made in editing, just for whatever reason.
Oh, because the episode ran long and they'd rather have like 2 bits of them singing, because they did have 2 music
for whatever
numbers.
reason,
it was the same one every time. It was that's what makes you beautiful.
Yeah, like you would think they would have a scene where they show up, where they arrive in their, their nifty freight elevator. But no, they just cut to them rehearsing. I guess with iCarly, there's not that much difference between the rehearsing and the actual thing. It's just them in her room.
Right.
And you've got, the whole band. Not like New Kids. This is the full 5-member One Direction.
Because they're all still together on tour. It's before Zayn or whatever his name is left.
Yes, and before Harry had a proper film career of his own.
And music career.
This is going to be... Harry drinks Carly's contaminated water and gets jungle worms. Right. That's what happens.
That's what happens. So they, Carly is, we have a scene earlier where she slaps it out of Freddie's hand because he tries to drink it, and she's like, no, I still might be contagious.
Twilight period where she's back on her feet and doing things, but nobody can drink her water.
Yes, she is going to be contagious for a few more days. And then Harry drinks the water, and he, gets sick, and he gets all the jungle worms thing, and then Carly figures out, like, oh no, you drank my water bottle, you can't do that, you have jungle worms. So then they were there for like just a rehearsal, and they aren't going to be on the show for about a week. And so he is at her house, and she's taking care of him for a week. And then it keeps on, apparently the symptoms of jungle worms are only supposed to last like 3 days, especially if you're getting treatment. And his is going on longer than it should. And Sam realizes that the reason Harry is still sick, in quotes, is that he's really enjoying Carly taking care of him and doing everything for him. Yeah. And so then the band and our iCarly crew devise a plan to make Harry jealous and stop pretending to be sick so that he wants to be back with the band. And
he's neglecting all of his One Direction. So One Direction is like operating out of Seattle for this week. Just like he's failing to like practice with them, record.
Yes. Do any of the things that they're going to do, and he's going to miss the recording of their show, and then also the big concert that they're going to. So the plan is Gibby is going to replace him
to be the new member of One Direction.
Yes, and then we get a great music scene. Like the second of 3, where Gibby is singing along and doing all the choreography, standing in the middle like Harry always did in the band.
Yeah, I mean, at this point...
there's 5 again, Jay.
And speaking of 5, this is season 5 of iCarly. So this is... Gibby is in full effect. They love to use this guy, this Noah whatever kid. And so, they get a big kick out of having him be the new Harry. And so, their very sitcom-y plan works exactly as designed.
Yeah, Harry's like, hey!
Within seconds, he shows up.
Wait a minute! Well, he's watching, and he's watching all covered up in a blanket, and he sees that Gibby is good, and he's like, oh, I feel much better now. I think I'm ready to practice with you guys.
Yeah, and so problem solved. Oh, yeah, this is just a side note, but when they were coming up with this plan to trick Harry into thinking Gibby was joining One Direction, they hatched all of this at their smoothie shop or some diner or something. So
they're down at the Groovy Smoothie. That's where
nobody's bothering them. Like, nobody notices that One Direction is in this smoothie shop with iCarly.
I'm saying it's like
based on the theme within this show of iCarly. This would be like if Taylor Swift and like Jimmy Fallon were sitting in their school cafeteria and nobody.
I feel like it's still early days. I feel like it's kind of like New Kids on the the Block back when we were in 4th grade.
Yes,
and
people would have noticed if New Kids on the Block came into my school cafeteria.
But it's the groovy smoothie, and so people, I don't know. You're probably right. I don't know.
I just found that strange that
maybe they only
kids...
had like grown-ups sitting around the groovy smoothie. They didn't have a bunch of kids sitting around like they normally do. Maybe it was after it closed.
I know there were kids all over. I think they were just being cool. They were respecting One Direction's space. But yeah, plan works perfectly. Harry rejoins the group, and then they end with the performance on iCarly, which I guess we've already seen like multiple times.
But we only saw pieces of it. Now we get like a couple of choruses and like Harry, and they're all wearing their little outfits that are kind of matchy, like so red and gray and white colors.
Here's my hot take about One Direction. And I'll say, like, I like Harry Styles' music, if that gets me anywhere, being less judgmental. They don't even really do, like, the dancing like the New Kids do.
No,
like, I noticed
they
aren't stand
dancers.
Around.
They aren't dancers.
Yeah.
Like many of the later boy bands, none of them were good dancers.
So
they were better singers. And so it's this kind of, the lazy sort of arm sweeping and the walking thing, like stepping from side to side.
At that point, I don't understand. Like, these are not barbershop songs. Why do they need 5 of them to sing this pop song?
Because it is the trope now. You've got to have the 5. You've got the baby face one. You got the cute one. You got the one that's tough.
That's fair.
You got
But what I'm saying is from a stage performance point of view, I would rather see one person bouncing around with energy singing, because they will always have something to do. Paula Abdul always has something to do when she's performing her song. With these 5 guys, I'm always looking at 4 of them standing around awkwardly while
each one of them auditioned individually for the X Factor and couldn't get through. And when they put them together in a band, they won the whole damn thing and took over the world. So your preference is just wrong.
I just noticed, watching them, I'm like, these guys, like, my stereotype of, Backstreet and them with them doing the dances, and certainly now, like, the K-pop and everything. I'm watching One Direction and going like, just exactly like you're saying, like, these guys don't even really dance.
No, they were all singers.
They strike a pose.
Yes. Because they auditioned originally as singers, and they were like, let's see if we can make this work. Cool, we're going to do easy choreo.
Yeah, again, like, I'm not super impressed with them as
Stop!
artists.
This song is so good, though.
And what is this song?
This song is That's What Makes You Beautiful, or You Don't Know You're Beautiful.
Okay. Yeah, it's okay.
It's very catchy.
Sam abducts one of them. That's my last note.
Yes,
Sam.
Zion or Zane or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
You can tell I'm old. I just never learned that guy's name. It's Zayn. And I think it's Zane, but it might be Zion. I'm not sure.
There is something about young men at this time, like their instincts with their hair. I don't have hair anymore, but when I did.
And you didn't have hair then either, at this point either. This was like the Bieber time too, because you had Harry had the hair all in his face like Bieber did.
The instinct that everything goes forward, that on the sides of your head, your hair goes forward, like into your face, is just so opposite. Like, to me, that's the hair equivalent of driving on the right side of the road.
I mean, it allowed men like you who were losing their hair to look young for a little while longer.
I guess, but it just like... To me, like, when I grew up, the hair on the side of your head went backwards behind your ear.
Or down.
Always.
Or it wasn't long enough to do that, so it went straight down.
Yeah, but once it was long enough to have any direction, it always went back. Like, you just... It was like if you put your hair forward, you were like making a joke. You're telling me
that Anthony Kiedis didn't have hair hanging in his face?
Not that I noticed.
Yes, he did, because he had super long hair.
I guess. So, yeah. I just like watching...
And Kurt Cobain always had bangs in his face.
Yeah, that's different. That's not like the way these kids have.
Oh no, definitely is a different look, but it isn't to say that like everybody just combed their hair back.
No,
that's
but
not
it
true.
just. I remember this happening at this time and just being really bewildered by it.
Yes, no, I 100% remember this happening because what was different about it was that it was these messy bowl cuts. They had, instead of like what was cool in the Backstreet Boys time was that like center part skater cut, you know, like, and they like came down to right above your ears, and it again like a bowl cut, but it was like shaved underneath, and it was center part, and it was like a skater cut. Now, or like and then the later version of that was this like Justin Bieber Harry Styles hair, which was like it was like long enough to be super messy.
Yeah, like a nest.
And exactly. And it was like you wanted it kind of on your face. Like you wanted it covering your forehead.
You looked like an anime character.
Yeah, so if you didn't have like a ton of hair forward, you would brush more of it forward to give it the more messy look. Absolutely. But yeah, it was all just variations on that bowl cut. Like guys who have straight-ish hair let their hair grow out to about their ears and then do things with it.
Yeah, well, and I would also argue it's like the increased, like adding a little bit of androgyny into it, adding a little bit of like a woman's, what had traditionally been a woman's haircut, those kind of like little bangs or little, you know, spikes or whatever. Like,
You're saying that Liza Minnelli's hair is what they were aiming for?
Not exactly, but I'm saying that looks that in previous generations would have been too feminine were now starting to get accepted, like a slightly more feminine twist.
I don't know if that's the case, because you always had that. Think about the Stones, think about Bowie, think about Queen, like and all of the hair bands, right? Like Motley Crue, Van Halen, all of those guys. It was very feminine, right? With the long hair, and they, you know, girls and guys did their hair the same way for that period of time. So like, I think it's just that trend in general is that there's like, whoever the pop rock stars are, there is that little bit of like, you know, androgyny there, but they're not doing it on purpose. Later on, Harry Styles did do it on purpose.
Yeah, but again, that's when there is just the androgyny really stepping into mainstream culture at that time. Okay, lots of boy band talk, lots going on here. What do we think? Summing it up, the first one and the last one were the best. The first one, we spent a lot of time on it, so like that tells you right there. There was a big nostalgia factor for me, and the way they weaved them into the story actually was kind of fun. Now, their acting abilities were not great, so it wasn't as good, I think, as what they did with iCarly. iCarly, they didn't use them acting as much, but they did a lot more of the performing, and they did the performing within the show instead of doing a concert thing at the end the way they did on Fuller House. So iCarly is always a winner for me, but I had a lot of fun with Fuller House this time. Yeah, that Sabrina one, I'm glad we watched that, even though it didn't really have a ton of the boy band. I just, you know, we didn't really even talk about her too much, but Melissa Joan is always, you know, she's always fun, and it just, you know, like it's that sort of formula of that, even though it's kind of something off of like a Saturday morning cartoon or something, I appreciate throwing that into the mix once in a while. But yeah, the Fuller House was definitely, again, there is like a quality to that, even though it's cheesy.
Yeah. The
actors are all pretty good. Like, it's shot well. I feel like acting wise, the New Kids did like, they did more than enough for what I would expect for that kind of thing.
Oh, absolutely.
I think Joey McIntosh being a little bit, Joey McIntyre being, you know, a little embarrassed when she was coming on to him and all of that, you know, the other ones rolling their eyes at the family members and stuff. Like, that's what you want out of non-actor, guest stars on your sitcom.
Well, and I mean, to that being said, like, Joey McIntyre is an actor too.
Yeah,
he's been
true.
on Broadway. He did Fiyero, and I feel like he did a couple other things. He may have been, or maybe it was Jordan went in and did Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat at some point. Like they had Donny Osmond in that 100 years ago as well, and that's a good vehicle for a showmanship kind of person.
Yeah, and you see that through line with iCarly, how again you have a boy band with a actor or future actor in their midst.
Yeah,
and
there's always one or two of them that they hopefully will transition into something else. What the one band that we didn't see, and they also had a guest appearance on a Sabrina episode, so we didn't want to do a double dose of Sabrina, but was NSYNC, and they too, they all have varying levels of acting talent. Obviously, Justin Timberlake is very, very funny, and all of his SNL stuff has gone, viral and crazy over the years. But even Joey Fatone and JC Chasez. JC was on the Mickey Mouse Club with Timberlake and Gosling and all the rest of them. And and Joey Fatone has, hosted things throughout the years. And I think they all of them have an element of showmanship. The one that I think was like the Joey McIntyre of the Backstreet Boys is Nick Carter, and he just doesn't have it. He's dumb and bad. And that is,
you heard it here first.
It's folks. Such a bummer. It's oh man, I wish my hometown boy was not a moron.
The two that do get to really get involved, the New Kids on the Block and Fuller House and One Direction and iCarly, you get to have one of them doing real comedy stuff and all of them doing at least a little bit of, messing around. And you see how, because look, at the end of the day, we're talking about sitcoms, right? It's it's almost, the same way the music arguably doesn't require them to be virtuosic musicians. The sitcoms don't require them to be bravura actors. It's they need to be good-looking, personable performers. And so it's, you see how iCarly herself, right? Miranda is also sort of permeates between singing and
Sam too. She tried to have an album. She put out a country album even later.
Yeah, and I feel did David Spade put out a country album?
I'm going to go with no. David Spade did not put out a country album.
Although you did have Uncle Jesse. He had some music.
Yeah, he played with the Backstreet Boys the Beach Boys for a while.
Yeah. So there you have it. Interesting lineup. I like that some of them, it was just sort of like a little fragment, and others it was really kind of a key component. And there we go. So much for hanging with the boy bands. What are we talking about next week?
We're solving murders, Jay.
Mm-hmm.
It's a murder mystery party, murder mystery weekend. We're going to watch The Jeffersons, season 9, episodes 8 and 9, Death Smiles on a Dry Cleaner, parts 1 and 2. Golden Girls, season 7, episode 2, The Case of the Libertine Belle. Saved by the Bell, season 3 or 4, episode 26, Mystery Weekend. And The Office, season 6, episode 10, Murder.
Yeah, that Saved by the Bell and The Office episodes are both among my personal favorites of those respective series. We will be all about the murder mysteries next week, and until then, we will consider this segment of the sitcom study concluded. Thank you for listening to the Sitcom Study. Tell us what you think or share your own TV tropes and topic ideas by sending a self-addressed stamped email to sitcomstudypodcast@gmail.com or find us on Facebook or Instagram. And if you like the show, consider leaving a rating or review on your podcast app. It helps us boost those precious Nielsen ratings. The Sitcom Study is recorded in front of a live studio dog.